The Better Call Saul finale signaled the end of 14 amazing years of television. The show was not only tasked with bringing Jimmy's storyline to a close, but also the Breaking Bad universe as a whole. The creators had to live up to their predecessor while also staying true to what makes Saul unique, and I think they pulled off this unenviable task brilliantly. But what did we learn about these shows, this universe, now that it's over? What is the message after 14 years of storytelling? Is it as simple as audiences enjoy watching bad guys, anti-heroes? I don't think so. The 6th and final season of Better Call Saul, if anything, has made it clear that choices determine who a person is deep down. Over and over again, our favorite characters were presented with tough but clear decisions, and the choices they made in those moments revealed who they were. Not what they said, what they did. This was true for Walter as well. In the end, Better Call Saul is a story about regret. It's about a man finally seeing his true nature and reflecting hard on the choices that made him that way. On our podcast, The Professional Appreciators, Evan and I broke all this down and explained why we found this to be one of the best finales of all time.
That's a great place to start. Let's talk about Jimmy's arc in the show. Okay. I think that's a really great place to start when unpacking everything that's happened over the last 6 years. Like you said, going into the show, you're thinking, oh, the arc is very laid out and simple. We're going to see Jimmy become Saul as we knew him in Breaking Bad. So it's someone kind of becoming this corrupted evil person,
dummy lawyer,
and that's all it is. It's, you know, a likable, good, kind of good guy, you know, likable becoming bad. And I think what's genius about the finale is they've truly understood the kind of inner two wolves nature of Jimmy, which is, you know, like, you know, there's two wolves inside you, one good, one bad. Which one do you feed? Like, Jimmy's always been struggling with, who am I really? Am I Jimmy, the one who it wants to prove Chuck wrong and can be a good person, or am I slipping Jimmy? Am I Saul?
Yeah.
And I think this show really understood it's not about him becoming Saul. It's about him always wrestling with that decision. And just because he was Saul in Breaking Bad doesn't mean at the end of the show he's going to end being Saul.
Yeah.
They still end it with that war inside of him.
Yeah.
And I think that really adds nuance and richness to this finale and makes it a little bit more gray. I mean, cue the black and white cinematography. It makes it a little bit more like it's not so simple. Like,
well, and it does ask the audience to wrestle with that.
Yep.
That kind of war, and that, like, I gotta say, it really made me think. Like
you were saying the other day, you're like, I hope he gets away with it.
I did. I wanted him to, and that's the thing that, like, they show every side of these characters, and they endear them to you in such a way that you want them to succeed, and you want them to, it's almost not even that they get away with it, but you want them to, like, be happy. It's almost like a friend that you've, like, it's like a friendship that you've developed where it's like, you've spent so much time struggling. I just want you to be happy, you know? And it's like, that's what I want. But at the end of the day, that's kind of what you get. And it's like, I think that for the show to say, like, whenever they're in the room discussing things with the lawyers, kind of making a deal.
Yeah.
And you hear about all the murders and all the money laundering and all the things that he's done. He's done horrible things, really bad stuff. And you're reminded, like, though Jimmy has a good dog or whatever it is, like that metaphor that you used, he did not feed that dog, like, for years and years of his life. And he did a lot of really messed up stuff. And should the message at the end of the show be, if you're smart enough, you could just get away with it? And I think it's a much more nuanced and rich ending for the show to say, if you work hard enough on yourself, you can live with yourself and find a little redemption if you've done bad things. And it's like, this is also a cautionary kind of, like, whenever you do these things, there are consequences. And I think that's an interesting thing to think about with for the show as a whole is consequences.
The finale rode that fine line between, okay, we're not just going to let Jimmy get away with it all, because at the end it's going to feel kind of shallow and a little like, whoa, like did any of the bad things that happen matter?
What's the message here?
But then also not making it so like, you know, retributive to like getting him punished to where you feel like, well, this guy just
1,000 years in prison.
Yeah, this guy just rooted for 6 years is like really getting the hammer thrown down on him.
Yeah.
And that fine line between, okay, he is going to own up to his mistakes, he is going to be punished for it, but there is going to be a moment of redemption that's not like overwhelmingly unbelievable where he becomes a completely different person. It's, you know what I mean? Like that fine line between, okay, Jimmy had one last choice to do the right thing, and he did it. And he's still getting punished. His life is not good.
Yeah.
But there still is that little moment of beauty, that little moment of a flame in color and black and white of, and like as Chuck said in that flashback, which, you know, there were a lot of great flashbacks.
Beautiful observation, by the way.
Yeah. There were a lot of great flashbacks in that episode with Mike, with Walter coming back in that flashback. But the best flashback for me was with Chuck because, one, it's true to what the show's always been. Yeah. And Chuck saying it's never too late to go back and, like, change who you are. Yeah. Or whatever he said. Basically, it's never too late to go back and start over. And then he grabs the H.G. Wells time travel book, the time machine, and goes into the living room. And I was like, yeah, that's what the show is saying. It's... Yeah. The show has always been about choices. Breaking Bad, Better Call, all the choices you come, and that's why the writing is so rich. Is they take these nuanced characters, these contradictory characters that have good and bad in them, and then they place these really tempting choices in front of them. Yeah, and you follow them as they make the choices that reveal who they are. And then in Better Call Saul, he gets that one last choice of: do you want 7 years in a cushy prison, throwing Kim under the bus, and yada yada yada, or are you actually going to own up? Are you going to do what Chuck always wanted you to do and own up?
I agree. That was one of my favorite scenes. Yeah. Because it's the whole episode, that through line of, and it opens with that, if you had a time machine, what would you go back and change?
That's a great little motif. Yeah. Yeah.
And Jimmy always has these kind of
schemes.
These kind of just like thin, you know, very selfish things that he would go back and change. And by the end of the show, you see like he grows, and he in the courtroom expresses to Kim that regret, and basically like, if I could go back, you know, I would choose you, you know, and that's I just think such a more rich way to kind of take that finale idea.
Well, something real quick that I noticed upon thinking about it was, because anytime a show ends or a movie ends, I always think, how does the ending fit with the beginning? So I started thinking about, what's the first episode of Better Call Saul? What's the first thing we see? Well, the first thing we see is the black and white Cinnabon kind of thing. Yeah. And in the opening little vignette ends with post Breaking Bad Saul digging out the VHS tapes of his time as Saul, and he's regretting over, not that he was Saul, but he's regretting that he's no longer Saul. That's kind of the implication I got when I watched the beginning. It's, these lost years where I was Saul and I had it all. And then when you get to the end of the show, you realize his regret is that he never really was the Jimmy that Kim and Chuck thought he could be.
Well, and you hear the audio from the Better Call Saul commercials, like kind of interspersed throughout the last couple episodes. Really the last episode, like when he's in the police station, whenever he's in Carol Burnett's house. And every time he hears it, it's not pride. Yeah. It's almost kind of shame.
And that's the thing is, when I thought back to it, I was like, oh, it recontextualizes him watching those tapes. Because when I very first started the show, you think, oh, he's working at a Cinnabon, he's blah, 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 he's not fulfilled, and he's longing for that time as Saul again. But now you could look at it as, is he longing for his time as Saul again? Or is he longing for things could have been differently, and this is what I ended up being. I hope you enjoyed the Better Call Saul experience finale, everything as much as we did. We're sure gonna miss it. So feel free to tell us what you thought about the finale and the show as a whole in the comments. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And well, with that, we'll see you next time.
Bye.